Hello everyone, my name is Denise and today I'll be talking about this book, The Body Keeps the Score. This is part 3 of the review, but you can just dive right into this video because all 3 are disconnected. You can just dive into any video and it'll be fine, okay? It's not in a sequence. Okay, next I'm going to start with normal versus traumatic memory. But high arousal not only changes the balance between them, but also disconnects other brain areas necessary for the proper storage and integration of incoming information, such as the hippocampus and the thalamus. As a result, the imprints of traumatic experiences are not organized and are not as coherent logical narratives, but in fragmented sensory and emotional traces, images, sounds, and physical sensations. Okay. So what this means is that normal memory is like a story, it's a narrative. It starts as a beginning, a middle, and an end. But for traumatic memory, sometimes it comes as weird sensations, you know, or like weird images. Like in this case, it's about a boy being molested. You can see the man at the doorway, or he can, like a split second, he has an image of him in front of a mirror or something like that. But it's just very fragmented. The story is not going to be very clear. So okay, how does this translate this in the work as a counselor? Okay, whether you are a counselor or you are a regular untrained person, nobody likes trauma. Okay, we tend to have this very normal tendency when someone tells us something traumatic, the first urge is to shut down or to push it away. Okay, so with that said, it's easy enough to push away something that is a narrative coming to us that seems very traumatic. But if it is even just a fragment thing, like suddenly has recollection of the alcohol in his breath, and I'm feeling really, really stressed, very scared right now. Something like that, like just a trace of the story, a small piece of information pops up during therapy, then it's all the more easy for you as a therapist to push that away and say that it's nothing. But then if you do that, it's not very therapeutic. So what the moral of the story is that there are, to be put simplistically, the normal kind of memory and the traumatic memory. And when the traumatic memory comes, it comes in sporadic, small little spurts. It's important for the counsellor to, instead of pushing it away, to latch onto it and try to deal with it, because then the therapy can be successful. Okay, then we can use hypnosis to get the full narrative out and then to process it. Okay, next up. Okay, talk about this. One of Pierre Janet's patients happened in the 1800s, the late 1800s. Her name is Irene. She was nursing her mother for many months. Her mother had tuberculosis. At the same time, she had to work outside the home to support her family. She has a father, but the father is alcoholic. So one night, she was very tired after working and nursing her mom. Her mom passed away. So in her trance state, because she's very tired, she still tried to stuff medicine down her mom's corpse. And the father passed out from alcohol overdose. That means that he drank too much alcohol and he passed out. So it was just her dealing with the mother's corpse. All night she did that. She was traumatized and in a state of denial. She couldn't, even during the funeral, she was laughing away. She couldn't process it well. And after that, she was in denial, but her body keeps reenacting it. Okay? Keeps reenacting it. So she was brought into Pierre Janet as a patient. So I'm going to read a passage. Traumatized people simultaneously remember too little and too much. On the one hand, Irene had no conscious memory of her mother's death. She could not tell the story of what had happened. On the other hand, she was compelled to physically act out the events of her mother's death. Janet's term automatism conveys the involuntary, unconscious nature of her actions. So she kept acting out the last night, the scenes of her at the bed nursing her dead mother, as if her mother's corpse, body is still there. She kept doing that repeatedly, like an automation of it. So, so you would think this is bizarre, but it actually happens. It's more common than you imagine. How so? Okay, if you observe even your family members or your clients, sometimes when they are triggered, They might be speaking English all the time, but suddenly they'll speak Hokkien or Chinese, or they start to do something that is very uncharacteristic of them. That could be this automatism coming in. Instead of the brain actively remembering it, their body keeps the score. The body has that memory, so they're acting out something that they observed or that they acted when they were traumatized. So as a counselor, as a therapist, or even as a family member, it's important to take note of this kind of reoccurring reenactments, because that is where the treasure is. We need to access it so that we can help the person recover. Okay, next up. Okay, talking about the history, okay, of trauma. So for World War I, all soldiers with psychiatric problems were to be given a single diagnosis, NYDN, not yet diagnosed nervous. Because what they were afraid of is that, yes, these people, they observe all the crimes and the terrors of the war, they're all visibly traumatized, but then if they all were like shell shocked and they withdraw from the war, then there will be no soldiers. So the strategy was to give them not yet diagnosed nervous, and then to just keep throwing them to get more traumatized lah. So at that time, the belief was that it is not war that makes men sick, but that sick men cannot fight wars. So if you go to a doctor, you're a veteran, you go to a doctor and you and tell them all your symptoms, the flashbacks and all that, the PTSD symptoms, they will say that you are a weak man. So it's actually quite a shameful thing. That's why this doctor said that he found that the older soldiers tend to keep a much tighter lid on their anger and hostility than the younger veterans. Culture shapes the expression of traumatic stress. Because in this case, the expression of traumatic stress, or the admission of it, is shameful, so people tend to keep a tighter lid. What is the treatment? In that time was hypnosis. So when the person is more relaxed, you can so-called loosen up that lid a bit and let that real anger, that fear come out, and that memory come out to be treated. So is hypnosis still being used these days? Yes, but it's evolved into something called schema therapy. They use something that is like hypnosis, more like imagery work, to bring you back to the trauma, so that you can get a clear narrative of what happened. But before you can do any kind of hypnosis, this book recommends that you need to train the client in relaxation activities like breathing or safe place, so that they can handle the physical sensations that accompany the recollection of the trauma. Okay, because you know that at the same time they recall too little, right? So they don't actually consciously know about it. So to go back and to consciously know about it can be very scary. Okay, next up. Okay, the problem or the good thing about memory is that once you access it, you can change it, make meaning out of it, and it will stop haunting you. But when you keep accessing it, it will distort it. So in this book as well, they mentioned that people who can process traumatic memories, will ask them to recall something that happened like 40 years ago, the story would have changed. But those who suffer from PTSD, they'll remember it very clearly, accurately. Okay, so the ability to warp the story in your own head is actually curative for you, but at the same time it reduces the accuracy. But if you ask me, do I want to have accurate memory and be traumatized versus having an inaccurate memory and be not traumatized, I'll always choose the latter. Okay, I'm going to read this out. But as soon as a story starts being told, particularly if it's told repeatedly, it changes. The act of telling it itself changes the tale. The mind cannot help but make meaning of what it knows, and the meaning we make of our lives change how and what we remember. Okay, next up, I'm going to close with this. I really like this, and I'm going to use it with my clients from now on. It talks about deep breathing. Okay, so when we take a deep breath in, it tends to activate the sympathetic nervous system that prepares fight and flight. Faster heartbeat and all that. But when you take a breath out, it activates the parasympathetic. That's the one that helps you relax. So when you take a deep breath, like deep breathing, if you focus to the end of your out breath, that actually better activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's why you calm down. So I'm just going to read this. It's a very nice script for breathing. When you deliberately take a few slow deep breaths, you will notice the effect effects of the parasympathetic brake on your arousal. The more you stay focused on your breathing, the more you will benefit, particularly if you pay attention until the very end of the out breath, and then wait for a moment before you inhale again. As you continue to breathe and notice the air moving in and out of your lungs, you may think about the role that oxygen plays in nourishing your body and bathing your tissues with the energy you need to feel alive and engaged. This is beautiful, and I think that this is the script that I will use from now on when I'm teaching my clients deep breathing. Okay, that's the end of today's video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, press like, subscribe and share with your friends. Thank you and God bless.